Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 869. No, 800. Actually, it's 896. All those different numbers. 896. And in today's episode, we are going into a little, almost like a follow subject, unintentionally, from the episode, I don't even know what episode, it was a couple of episodes ago. And it was all about like reframing anxiety. So weirdly enough, it falls in sync because when you change your perception, you change the meaning of your experience. You change how you show up, how you associate things. So I thought we'd go there today when it comes to making changes in your life. Because I'm trying to think of the word actually specifically. When you go ahead and just reflect backwards, in hindsight, you get so much more knowledge and experience, right? Because you've been there, you've done that, you've experienced everything, and then you're like, oh, I wish I knew this differently. So in hindsight, it's really good. But the problem with hindsight is we only get that because we've been through the event and we've gained more data, learning, and information to then change how you would have done things differently if you could have. Like if you could go back in time, you would have told yourself certain things, certain advice, certain knowledge, give that you the knowledge of how to navigate the world differently. So let's take that kind of frame of reference and then do it in two different ways. One way I do very much therapeutically, especially in my main program, has been a bit of a theme of pre-teaching the younger self. And I said this in a previous episode, I think, is being the person that you needed in your life way back when you had the issue. So for me, it could have been when I was 5 years old, 6 years old. If I could be the person that I needed back then and tell my unconscious mind that knowledge, then perfect, that's great. I could really evolve my unconscious mind. But if we're going to do it in this unique way, different way, it's almost as if you are writing a letter from your future self. Now, I would love this to be an exercise where you actually take the time out to do this. So I will give you the brief overview. And I want you to imagine in your mind, if you haven't got a pen and paper, because you can always pause this at any time if you're listening to this on the app or the podcast, for example, or YouTube. But ideally, I would like you to take the adequate time to explore this. It's almost like having future hindsight. So in your mind's eye, I would like you to imagine as if you are way off into the future, having successfully solved any issue you're going through. So whether you have money issues right now, so you're in that debt, or maybe you have relationship issues, maybe you have the imposter syndrome, the inner critic, lack of confidence, all anxieties, worries, fears, phobias, whatever it is, I want you to imagine in your mind as if you could fully be that person in that future who has successfully completed this. And you were to pick up a pen and you were to begin to write down, if you made that change and you're looking through the eyes of that successful you, what knowledge and information would you give that you? Would there be any attributes that you'd want to bring up, any qualities that you would want to improve or even give that younger you as knowledge and advice? What words of wisdom would you give this present you because you're in the future having made that change? Would there be any actions that you'd want that younger you to have? Really consider it. Because when you go there in your mind, you're actually starting to uncover the resources you need to overcome the issue. So usually, in other words, we are locked into this mindset in the present self with all the issues and experiences we've had from the past, the limiting thoughts, the limiting beliefs, the anxieties, the fears, the emotions in general, the behaviors. And that means we're like a horse with blinkers on. You only see your life and your reality from this present moment. You're locked in, looking through the eyes of the problem. But if you go ahead and you go further enough out into the future to gain as much space as you can and look through the eyes of that successful you, you open up the blinkers. You open up your perception and your viewpoint of the world, and the nature of looking through the eyes of the you who has solved everything, completed everything, achieved everything, learned and grown in so many ways. You are tricking your unconscious mind to also be the solution, because that's the viewpoint you're looking through. That's the feelings you're having. So really immerse yourself and step into that future you who has solved the problem. Very much in the same way as being the person that you'd want to be when you were maybe a kid, when you had the issue. Now we're doing it in the future to this present you. If you were to write down or consider a bit of wisdom, maybe it's as simple as, well, don't take things too personally. Maybe it's to do more things that you love, because that will create more excitement and joy. It could be that it shall pass. It could be handing over to that you a certain feeling. What would that be? It'll be a collection of these things. I would really ideally like you to think about what kind of beliefs you'd tell that you to consider, different viewpoints, different emotions, attributes and qualities, compliments. It could be loving words. But that hindsight of the future, I would love you to write that down and consider. What type of things would that future you give you as sage advice? And take a moment. Of course, like I said, you can pause this if you're listening to this on audio or video, because it is being broadcasted live right now. But really try that on. If you were to step in to the you who's transformed, the you who overcame all pains, all problems, all issues, from physical to psychological, in other words, the internal to the external when it comes to having achieved your goals and dreams, if you were to fully immerse yourself into that you, as much as you possibly can, you don't have to visualize it, but if you step into that you may see things, you may hear things, you may feel things, you may have a feeling of love and joy. Maybe you would encourage that you to keep on going. Maybe that future you will say, look, not only if you do the work and let go of this problem, not only will you solve it, but you've got this wealth of new experiences because you've solved the problem, which you didn't even know could happen. But the very nature of solving the problem allowed you to invite these amazing possibilities, these new people or experiences or wealth or health. Like, it could be anything. If you were to fully immerse and embody to that future you who has achieved everything you've always desired, what would you say to that you? What advice? What would that future you want you to live by? Like, would there be a certain code or a certain saying? Is there any actions that you would say, look, it's time to give that up because it's not serving you in the way that it's really going or really serving you? Which could be like, ditch some of the bad habits temporarily so you can immerse yourself in this, because it will allow you to do this. Because you, in other words, to this present you, In order to become that future you, you have to start to live and be that future you. You've got to give up who you presently are to be the person you really want to be. Now, we could go a little bit more interesting with this as well. Because earlier I said that, look, if I think of like that in reality, right, there's my present age. So, well, I'm like 40 years old. I say like as if I don't know. Sometimes I forget. But I'm 40 years old. And I think of the young Joseph being 7, 8, 4, could be any age. What would I tell that younger me? And I think I may have said this before, but sometimes I have reoccurring dreams going back to school. So my secondary school specifically. And in this dream, as I'm sleeping, I'm almost telling my unconscious mind that it's going to be okay. That the issues that you experience right now is going to fuel you to make a big difference, or intentionally to make a big difference. Don't worry about all the stress and the exams, because you're going to find your way eventually. And in that dream, there's a lot of peace. There's a lot of like, oh my goodness, it's going to be okay. Like, it's going to work out. So there is a level of wholeness and healing when you have dreams like that, because you're telling your unconscious mind, or your unconscious mind's doing the work really, to say, look, we've solved this. We don't have to repress this. We don't have to keep going back into the past, because everything's going to be fine. So we know that that works, even if you think about telling that younger you and give that you all the things you needed. I do that with lots of therapeutic processes, not necessarily in the app or anything, but in my program. We do a little bit within the app, but you need more time and attention for these things to go real deep into it. But you can just consider that younger you at your present age. But as we just did, we went to the future you, to your present age. Now you can think of that future you, the real you has achieved everything in life, and not just give advice to this present you, but also to that you way back when you were so young. Maybe when you were having most of the issues, because they tend to, I say tend to, it's not always going to be the case, but between 0 and 7 is usually the foundation of a lot of core issues, or at least then between 7 and 14 as well, because we're modeling people. But if you were to look through the eyes now of that future you, what would that you say to the baby you now? And that means we've given advice to the present you, and now the you way back then. And what this tends to do, if you take time to do this, I mean, it will probably work right now, but you may start to feel a sense of peace and healing. It's almost like you're telling yourself, we don't need this issue. Wherever it just diminishes a little bit, gives you a little bit more peace, maybe a bit of a wake-up call. But now it's time to do something, and you get excited by it. But what we're doing is we're getting the unconscious mind to set up new connections to resources, new connections to knowledge and wisdom, because you couldn't access them because you're in that blinkered viewpoint, but then opening up into the expansiveness of the future you, we're getting the unconscious mind to go there. I always see the issues like a blank piece of paper. Now, that's how we were when we came into this world, and then somewhere along the line, it's like a circle gets drawn. And that becomes the issue. Maybe it's I'm not good enough or worthy, and the more times we live in the circle within that blank piece of paper, it just reinforces the circular boundary. We get stuck in that. We feel conflicted from everything else. And that means if we live within that circle on the big piece of paper, we're missing out on so much. But if we begin to go off into that future you, what are we doing? Metaphorically, on this piece of paper, we're going beyond the boundary, which is actually beyond the neurological boundary of the problem itself. And that's why it links into not last episode, because that was a hypnosis session, but the one prior to that, by reframing anxiety. We did lots of kind of small little processes to do that. But we're doing this in time, in terms of reconnecting to new possibilities, reframing your experience. Now, if that future you is given advice to the present you and the you way back then, now this present you has to make some decisions. Are you going to take the advice of the you that has everything? Solved everything? Now, it just popped into my mind, if you want to go really extreme, and this could be a little bit emotional, so you get to choose, you may want to even look through the eyes of the future you which did not change. That's right. That's where it gets a little bit scary, right? Not in a scary horror, or it's kind of horrible, but it's a wake-up call. Will that you, that future you that did not change, what would knowledge and information would that you give your present you? That might add an extra level of leverage, because now we got the two opinions of the you that has everything and the you that did nothing and stayed the same. And then you get to make a decision. Which future you will you be? Like I said, having that one is a bit of a wake-up call when it comes to adding the you which did not change. For me personally, I would go into it because I like to assume responsibility for all possibilities. And that might be my wake-up call to go, oh my goodness, I do not want to be that future me which did not change, having missed out on all the opportunities compared to the other me. So with that process, you don't have to do that to that real young you, just the present you, because that's where the wake-up call happens. But when you do this, either way, if you just go all in the positive of having achieved everything, you're going to gain advice, knowledge, and feelings, and you're getting your unconscious mind to go beyond that neurological boundary of being locked into the problem, to see more possibilities, to step outside into the everything, like that, going back into the oneness of that blank piece of paper. It blows out the neurological boundaries. That's where a lot of the therapeutic processes that I do is designed for, to go into the void in the good way, go into the wholeness and the peace, because once you let go of a neurological boundary, guess what? There's no boundary. Therefore, you fall back into wholeness with learnings. But wherever you do the extreme one, wherever you just do it to your present self in general, for just the positive one, or you go way back to that young you to give all that great advice, that is what it will do. Give you more hindsight for the present. And that means you get to choose the desires, the feelings, the thoughts, the actions that you'll do to live a life of absolute deep self-certainty. I like to think of love, passion, purpose, mission, ambition. All the things are on the other side. So maybe it's time to give up the present you, aspects of the present you, so you can fully immerse into the future you that has everything. So as you kind of consider that future self going to your present self, let's take that as an example. I would love for you to literally write out a letter, a meaningful letter to yourself. Like, put as much emotion and wisdom that you just feel like there's something powerful about it. And you may even want to be able to have, like, I'd love to see like a good whole page of writing, of knowledge and insight that you would like to give to that present self, because you're looking through the eyes. Like, it's almost like a love letter to yourself, right? A love letter of advice, knowledge, and wisdom. And then you can even hold it up, fold it up even, or you could pin it on the wall if you want to. So every time you see that future love letter to yourself of all the things you do, it is fresh in your mind to have that wake up call. You don't have to do it for the negative one, like the you hasn't changed. You could explore that, but ideally, I would love you to write out a proper love letter from that future you who has achieved everything, and telling that you all the knowledge and information you need to know. That's going to be really, really powerful. So write a letter from that future self to your present self. Now, of course, if you are experiencing with things like the imposter syndrome and the inner critic, and you need my help, my team's help to get you over the line because you're just sick and tired of struggling and battling it by yourself, and you are a professional who wants to get the success that you desire, because that's what my program is designed for, letting go of the imposter syndrome when it comes to professionals. There is an investment, of course, because it is a fully customized program, tailored and catered for your personal needs. You can go to josephclough.info/talk, and when you go there, you'll be able to book a time to speak with us. It'll be a one-to-one conversation. We'll get clear on exactly what's happening, what's getting in the way, where you want to be. And then if we can solve it, we'll let you know. We might go, look, yeah, we can solve this within 8 weeks, and you can get into the program. Like I said, there is an investment. If you haven't got no money right now, no shame in that. Just use all my free work. That's why we've done 896 episodes today. But if you are ready to go all in, josephclough.info/talk. And depending what you'll see there may be availability, there may not be, because we only operate and work with a small amount of people because it's very personalized and customized. You get to work with me and the team ultimately to be able to get you to where you want to be that future you in the most undeniable way within 8 weeks. So that's josephclough.info/talk. But either way, step into that future you. Look through the eyes of who you're about to become and start to implement that new frame of reference. You get to decide, and that's what I love about life. You're in charge of your mind and therefore your results. Even in the contrasting experience, that's how I see my life. I've got to take that responsibility personally. You don't have to do it yourself, or you may have different beliefs around that, but that's how I feel like we really get the success that we desire. So with that, my friends, I look forward to speaking to you on a future episode. Many thanks and goodbye.